Army reservist. Your army needs you. Find where you belong. Search Army Reserve.
This is the Ballad of Eamon Holmes, OBE.
Well, he started in telly back in '79, did the farming news for quite some time. The first year they had him counting cows and winter ran.
63, 64, 65.
But everything changed in '93. He got the breakfast gig on GMTV. He made his throne the most famous sofa in the land.
This is more like it.
But he wanted more than a daytime show, so he figured he'd give the airwaves a go. And he could win himself a whole new army of fans.
Piece of cake.
He got it one job at a time, and I guess it turned out just fine. The fella's got a natural primetime glow.
Good morning, ladies.
He's gonna drive you home in style. Serious news, but with a smile. Eamon Holmes is on talk radio.
Yep, that's me, a boy named Eamon. Every Monday to Thursday afternoon from 4, only on Talk Radio.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
This is Talk Radio.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
Talk Radio, on the hour news headlines.
Good morning, I'm David Dom. The Lib Dems and the SNP have joined forces to propose a Commons vote to trigger a December general election. But they've also asked the EU to grant the UK a 3-month Brexit extension to prevent leaving the European Union without a deal. It's been dismissed as a stunt, though, by Culture Secretary Nicky Morgan.
They've made it clear they have no intention of wanting Brexit to be done. They're saying go for an election. If the SNP and the Lib Dems want an election, they have a chance to vote for one as quickly as tomorrow when the government's motion is voted on. And we'll see whether they're in our lobby or not.
Meanwhile, Tony Blair has exclusively told Talk Radio treating a general election like a second Brexit referendum would be a huge mistake for the country.
It's completely unfair to put people who may be anti-no deal but worried about Jeremy Corbyn in a bind, and it's completely unfair to have people who want Brexit but don't want a Tory government in a bind. You should have these questions decided separately.
You can listen to the full interview with the former Prime Minister from midday on Talk Radio. Elsewhere, police are still questioning 3 suspects over the deaths of 39 people in a lorry container in Essex. One man charged with manslaughter and other offences is due in court tomorrow. The NHS is offering help for people in England who lose a relative or friend to suicide. Around £1 million is being invested in 10 areas to help people following a tragic death, as the health service says they are at higher risk of taking their own lives. And don't forget, the clocks went back an hour overnight, meaning most of us had an extra hour's sleep in bed. The change officially marks the end of British summertime.
Talk Radio National Weather.
Showers in the north with the heaviest rain across Scotland, drier and cooler further south.
Talk Radio Sports Update.
Liverpool could reopen their 6-point lead over Manchester City in the Premier League this afternoon. They take on Tottenham in their first meeting since the Champions League final. Meanwhile, Norwich could go level on points with Manchester United if they beat Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's side later. Ben Spencer has been called into the England rugby squad as a potential replacement for Willie Hines. The Gloucester man picked up a hamstring injury in the 1907 World Cup semi-final victory over the All Blacks. They'll play either Wales or South Africa in the final. And Lewis Hamilton starts in third at the Mexican Grand Prix as he looks to secure a 6th driver's title. Charles Leclerc is on pole. That's the latest.
Talk Radio.
Across the UK, online and on DAB Digital Radio.
Talk Politics with Alexis Conran on Talk Radio.
I have to apologise. I don't know who that voice, that very stern voice saying Talk Radio with Alexis Conran. I don't know who that is. I'll have a word. Welcome to the show. Good morning. Thank you for joining us here on the Talk Politics show here on Talk Radio. I'm Alexis Conran, and I will be bringing you all the stories this week well, where do we start? Brexit, the government, should there be an election? Should it be a second referendum? All of those stories we're going to look at, analyse, see what's going to happen next week, and also get your thoughts. This is an interactive programme. You can watch us on a live stream. You can go to our Facebook page at Talk Radio, our Twitter page at Talk Radio, and I believe we're also live streaming on YouTube. If you go to the Talk Radio YouTube page, you can contact the show by dialing 0344 499 1000. That is the number you need. Or you could tweet us at Talk Radio. You can even text the word talk to 87222, followed by your message. Now, helping me get through the stories that are in the Sunday papers and what's gone on this week, I have two guests with me. A welcome return to Jonathan List, Deputy Director of British Influence. Welcome back, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Love the shirt.
Thank you very much.
You have to get onto the streaming site to see.
I'm literally tweeting about it right now.
The autumnal colours that Jonathan has brought in.
That is, yes, it is autumnal.
There you go.
In honour of the extra hour in bed.
And
it's worth logging onto the live stream just for the shirt.
Just for the shirt. And you heard the voice there of Dr. Lee Jones, academic teaching politics and international relations and co-founder of The Full Brexit. We're going to get onto that in a second. Welcome, Lee.
Thank you.
We've had the conversation, Dr. Lee, but he said Lee. Lee will do. Welcome to the show, both of you. We are asking the question this morning on our all social media pages of what do you hope a general election will achieve? And I'm interested in your answers on that. What do you hope a general election will achieve? Already, the world's gone mad. I can pretty guess what this the reply from this saying. Anything other than this current shower of MPs. Ousting Corbyn. Well, he's not in, but I see. But he did say he might stand down as leader if he loses the next general election. The loss of jobs for all current MPs. I see a complete sort of rehash of MPs. Gentlemen, I on my show yesterday, we were on College Green last Saturday because it was the Super Saturday day. And on my show yesterday, I had to put out an apology to my listeners because I got it completely wrong last Saturday because we all felt a bit deflated and we said, well, nothing much has happened. It was a bit of a meaningless vote, a bit of a disappointment. But actually, with the benefit of hindsight, a lot happened last Saturday.
Absolutely. It's incredibly important.
It was a huge day because it meant that Boris Johnson ultimately had to do the thing he promised he would die in a ditch before he did, which is send the letter. Now, we'll get into how the press dealt with that, because I do want to talk a little bit about the press before the end of the show and how we were all talking the following day about, he sent a photocopied letter, it wasn't signed, it was 3 letters. And actually, are we being played as press by Downing Street, and the fact that we are constantly being given tidbits and stories that actually don't matter at all, and we've been sidetracked by actually the real story, which is Prime Minister has had to do something he said he would never do, and he's actually there doing it. But we'll get onto that in a second. But Jonathan, you're saying it was a very big day. In your view, why was it so?
Well, you've just given the reason, which is that once the Letwin Amendment passed, it meant that that Johnson really had no means of delivering Brexit by the 31st of October, and so we were sort of sent down the road we now have, which is that that Johnson is going to have to break the cardinal pledge of his premiership. That was that he staked so much personal and political capital on. I think the greatest question of his premiership will be why he staked so much personal and political capital on an arbitrary deadline that he knew, he must have known he wouldn't be able to meet. I think that will be a sort of question that will become more and more clear. Look, it might be that he can, sort of shake it off in the election campaign, that it doesn't become important, especially if Brexit is delivered. But it does seem extremely curious that he would have clung to that date for so long, way after it was apparent that he wouldn't be able to make it.
That it wasn't. Yeah. Can we all agree that, technically the issue is still open, that come Thursday we may leave?
I think it's almost impossible.
It's almost impossible, but can we agree, Lee, your view? Not happening. Okay. There are some still, I think very few, but there are some still.
I had a wobble on Friday night, I think, when I read a report that said Macron was considering vetoing an extension altogether. And I thought it was very unlikely, but I sent out a rather injudiciously worded tweet where I sort of accused him of playing the emperor and stuff like that. And
But then you had to send another tweet saying, "No, I'm not blaming the French for anything."
Yeah, then people were saying, "Why are you blaming the French?" So I'm not blaming the French. I'm saying that Macron is playing the emperor, but because he's enjoying his power and he's actually alienating himself in the EU, and this is a really important point. He's annoyed the EU because he's just trashed a decade of EU policy by saying that he doesn't want to start accession talks with North Macedonia and Albania, which flies in the face of everything the EU's been saying for very many years. And now he would risk alienating them by saying that the UK can't have an extension.
Lee, if you were a Conservative Party member and a firm Leave voter, right now you could be forgiven for being in despair, couldn't you? Because Boris Johnson so far said he wouldn't put a border down the Irish Sea last year, 2018, in front of the DUP party membership. He promised he would leave on October the 31st, do or die, as all three of us have agreed that's not going to happen. He said he'd rather die in a ditch than send a letter. Well, guess what? He sent the letter. And he also said, in the steps of number 10, he did not want an election. And now he's on his knees begging for one. So has it all sort of fallen apart for Conservative Party members and committed leavers?
No, I don't think so. I think you're asking two separate things. One is about what Tory party members think. And there was an extraordinary poll over the summer, which I think a lot of people missed, asking Tory party members, in order to get Brexit, what are you willing to sacrifice? And they were willing to sacrifice everything. The continued existence of the Conservative Party itself, Northern Ireland, Scotland. The only thing that they weren't willing to tolerate to get Brexit done was a Jeremy Corbyn-led government, which tells you a lot. Now, the bigger point is, is this all bad for Boris Johnson? And I think this goes to your question about the press. This was depicted as a terrible defeat for Boris Johnson. I think it's the people in the country at large, I think, view this very differently. And I think also number 10 views it very differently. It was a win-win for Boris Johnson. Either he manages to get Brexit through, his deal, which everybody said he wouldn't be able to renegotiate. I was sceptical myself. He gets a deal. He either gets that through, or he shows that Parliament is hell-bent on blocking Brexit at all costs, and that pushes him into the position siding with the people against Parliament. So when we finally get to a general election, he will be able to rile up the public against his opposition in Parliament. That's a win-win from Boris Johnson's perspective.
That's always been the plan, that he's going to have a Trump-style election, that it's only Boris Johnson can rescue the people from the MPs, the judges, the civil service, basically, the unspoken sort of treasonous Remain establishment.
It's Parliament that's given him the Parliament versus the people.
It's quite extraordinary.
By resisting implementing what people voted for in 2016. If Parliament had simply come round to the instruction that they had received, which they had asked the British people for in 2016, if they genuinely accepted it and wanted to implement it, we wouldn't be talking about a people versus Parliament election. We have now competing visions for Brexit, competing visions for post-Brexit Britain that the electorate will be able to choose between. That we don't, that we're having the so-called Trump-style election, is thanks to Parliament.
Well,
now,
Parliament chose three times not to vote for Brexit. The Brexiters chose 3 times not to vote for Brexit.
Well, indeed, they blocked the ratification of Theresa May's Brexit deal, but so indeed did the opposition. So,
yes, but if the Brexiters hadn't blocked it, it would have gone through. We'd have left on the 29th of March.
I mean, I personally didn't think that Theresa May's deal was good enough.
Yes, but that's not what you said. You said that the Parliament has resisted implementing the will of the people. The will of the people was to have Brexit. They didn't sort of specify a specific deal.
85% of current MPs were elected in 2017 on a pledge of respecting the referendum result, which means that all of those MPs should have been able to be willing to support Theresa May's deal, and they weren't.
But Lee, I've heard that stat bandied around before, and whereas it is possibly factually true, it is sort of a sweeping generalisation, because even though Labour, for example, said they will respect the referendum result, they did put some very strong caveats in their manifesto that Brexit had to protect jobs, workers' rights, have a customs union. I mean, that was in the manifesto.
That wasn't in the manifesto, actually.
Was it not?
Customs union policy came after the referendum.
Okay, forgive me. That was my mistake. Thank you, Jonathan. But it was quite clear that a no-deal Brexit was not part of a Labour manifesto. In fact, I think when you look at the manifestos and the people got into government, people voted for more MPs who were against no deal than they did for a deal. So, when you say, well, it's Parliament's fault that we are where we are, we must also remember that post the 2016 referendum, we did have another vote, which was the 2017 election, which returned a hung Parliament. That's also a will of the people, which nobody really talks about.
Yeah, but of course, the difference is the 2017 election result has been implemented in the sense that the people that were elected in 2017 have taken their seats. We are still waiting for the vote of 2016 to be implemented.
You could say that the 2017 election, if they implemented the result of the 2017 election, which was a hung Parliament, that's not a majority of the Conservatives, and the Conservative Central Policy Platform did not get a majority.
Well, I suppose that's true, but the and of course I'm not a Conservative, so I'm not here to bang a drum for the Conservatives. But the result that we still haven't implemented is the 2016 result, which, let's not forget, the vast majority of MPs legislated for. They asked the British people for an instruction. They were given an instruction by the electorate. Parliament has still yet to carry out that instruction. That is the fundamental nature of the Brexit crisis. That's why we are in a situation where we may well have a people versus Parliament election, which I think will be very damaging for our electoral democracy.
Okay, but in a sense, and as someone who wants to see Brexit done, and I hate using that phrase, but I just do.
Get Brexit done, get Brexit begun, more like.
Get Brexit begun.
Have that one for free.
But Lee, you said you didn't like Theresa May's deal. Do you like Boris Johnson's deal?
I think it's superior in the sense that it restores more powers to Parliament. So for me, Brexit was simply a means to an end. As somebody on the far left, I want to see far left government in this country and left-wing policies implemented. Those policies are not possible within the European Union. There are many aspects of the Labour Party manifesto, for example, which is only a moderate social democratic manifesto, that can't be done inside the European Union.
I remember reading up on this, and I think out of the 17 proposals, it was about 2 that needed some sort of European nodding through, but there wasn't anything that Jeremy Corbyn was suggesting that was absolutely undoable if we were still members of the European Union. So could you be more specific about what you would like to see that is not possible under our membership of the European Union?
Well, there are many things that I personally would like to see, which are not on the table.
Not on the menu.
Okay, not on the menu, indeed.
Yeah.
But specifically on the Labour Party manifesto, one, for example, is about railway renationalisation, which is why the RMT union has always been against the European Union, because they can see that it actually promotes marketisation, privatisation, and forbids renationalisation.
Sure, forgive my ignorance, but with my partner being German, there's a lot of nationalised railways, both in Germany...
There are state-owned railway companies operating within a competitive market environment. That's very different.
Okay.
What we have on the continent, yes, they're state-owned railway companies, but they operate in a competitive market environment. And right now, there are massive railway strikes, for example, in Norway, responding to EU deregulation measures and saying we don't want to go down this road. So renationalisation, if that means you can operate a state-owned company within a competitive market environment, then yes, that's possible. But to take everything back into public ownership and to run it for the public good, rather than on the basis of competition, that's not possible. And that isn't a subtle distinction. That's why the RMT is opposed to European Union membership and always has been. So that's just one example. But to bring it back to answer your question, why is this deal superior? It is because it allows larger swathes of our public policies to be determined by Parliament and not to be locked in and subject to EU oversight. So, for example, the Labour Party is quite right to say that the UK will no longer be tied to workers' rights, environmental protection, consumer protection standards locked in by the EU. That's true. It's also true to say that we can make our own determination on state aid, industrial policy, anti-competitive practices and so on. In other words, radical left-wing policies that would not be possible inside the European Union. So if Brexit was about taking back control, to use another slogan, then this deal allows us to take back more control to our own parliament than Theresa May's deal did. So in that sense, I think it's superior. It allows us to thrash out the issues domestically, and whoever gets into government decides which direction the country goes in.
I mean, it's just purely isolated from the real world context as well, though, because of course, if you say, well, we're going to scrap the EU's state aid policy, that means the EU will say, well, in that case, we're not going to give you a very favourable trade deal. So what you might gain on one hand, you will lose on the other.
Yeah,
I mean, far more than you would gain, actually, in many ways.
Okay, let's take a quick break. A reminder, you can watch us on live stream if you go to our Twitter page at Talk Radio, if you go to Facebook, if you go to our YouTube page, we're streaming live. We'd love your comments, so I'm going to read through your comments after the break. Get in touch with the show, 0344 499 1000 is the number you need. You could tweet us at Talk Radio. You can text the word TALK to 87222. We'll be straight back after the break.
This is
Talk Radio.
The Alexis Conran Show on Talk Radio with The Times and The Sunday Times. Know your times.
Carl's all-change casserole.
So, Chloe walks in from school, tears all over her face.
Daddy,
She says,
I don't want to eat animals anymore.
I blooming love my meat, but not as much as I love my little girl. That's why we've made some changes to our old favourite, sausage casserole. Now with meat-free Cumberlands, but still with my magic touch, a dollop of mango chutney. Just as tasty as it used to be.
Better, actually.
Make your own with the new Tesco Plant Chef range. Food Love Stories. Brought to you by Tesco.
Be part of the Perfume Shop's exclusive buy one, get the second half price gifting weekend. Buy any perfume in-store or online and you'll get the second half price. Thinking of a present? Think the Perfume Shop for the ultimate finishing touch. Offer ends Sunday the 27th of October. Visit theperfumeshop.com for more details.
You're trying to leave the house, but not before you dress the kids, pack their lunch and track down that missing shoe. So forgetting to turn the heating off is easily done. But it's nice to know with Hive Active Heating, a Which Best Buy, you can turn your heating off from wherever you are. And by never having to heat an empty home, you could save up to £120 a year on your heating bill. Search Hive Heating to buy now. Hive services require broadband and Wi-Fi. Terms apply.
My name is Sarah Connor.
Critics agree Terminator Dark Fate has truly blistering action.
Do you believe in fate, Sarah?
Listen, everybody dies if you don't make it.
It's thrilling. 4 stars, says Empire Magazine.
A machine from the future wants you dead. Never seen one like you before. Almost human.
Don't miss legendary producer James Cameron's Terminator Dark Fate.
Sarah, I'm going to help you change the future.
I'll be back.
In cinemas and IMAX now. Rated 15.
There are some things in life even Sky Broadband can't guarantee. They can't guarantee you'll only see green lights on your journey home. Whee! Or that your car radio will always play your favourite songs. But with their Wi-Fi guarantee, they can guarantee Wi-Fi in every room of your home. If not, you get money back. An absolute classic. Sky. Believe in better. Requires Sky Broadband Boost and Sky Kit. Refund on Boost component of subscription paid during current minimum term up to date of claim. See sky.com/guarantee.
Talk Radio, traffic and travel.
We still have a few problems on the M25, anti-clockwise in Surrey from junction 9 at Leatherhead to junction 8 at Reigate. It's very slow following an accident which is now on the hard shoulder. It's also slow on the M25 clockwise at junction 30 for Lakeside because of a broken down car part blocking the exit slip, and it's also very slow because of a broken down vehicle between junction 23 for the A1M and junction 24 on the clockwise side because of a breakdown. In Cumbria, the M6 northbound remains closed between junction 41 for Catalan and junction 42. I'm Michael Page.
At first we were worried about using purple bricks, but since we sold with them I haven't been able to stop going on about them, have I, dear?
No, love.
I've been telling everyone, family, friends, that confused guy at the supermarket.
Yeah, you haven't really shut up about that.
But seriously, did I tell you about our purple bricks estate agent, Michael?
I met him too, he was nice.
We could talk to him whenever. Anything we asked, he could do it.
That's enough now,
He
dear.
was brilliant, always available to chat on the phone.
Enough,
I
Robert.
could email him any time of the day or night.
Purple bricks. You'll be totally sold.
Fixed fee payable on instruction or after 10 months. Viewing services cost extra. See website for more details.
Across the UK, online and on DAB Digital Radio. The Alexis Conran Show on Talk Radio.
Welcome back to Talk Politics with me, Alexis Conran, here on Talk Radio. Remember, you can watch us live streamed on Twitter, on Facebook, and on YouTube. With me, I have Jonathan Liss and Dr. Lee Jones, and you have had a lot to say. The question, what do you hope a general election will achieve? Lee on YouTube, a whole new parliament. Ian on YouTube, I want someone to implement the will of the people and leave Europe without selling out Northern Ireland. Well, that's going to be a bit tricky. Barry on Facebook, for those lazy MPs to lose their jobs, it's becoming a joke. They're all scared of Boris. Whether you agree with someone or not, we need leaders in this world. Boris, for all his faults, is a leader. James on Facebook says, a general election will solve anything. The country will still be divided. And Jeppy on Twitter says, peace on earth and true equality. Sadly, it will just add more mud and division. I want to get to what's going to be happening this week. But before we do that, there's a lovely little clip that someone sent me. And it's Boris Johnson expressing his views. I won't say on what just now, because I think it'll become evident, but have a listen to this.
And the kicker is that not only are we going to remain in the customs union and in large parts of the single market, but also we will not have protected our precious union. Because if you look at what they've agreed today, again, we must caveat this and say you look at the reports, then it is also accepted that there must be customs and regulatory checks down the Irish Sea between Great Britain and Northern Ireland, which currently do not exist. And for the first time since partition, Dublin, under these proposals, would have more say in some aspects of the government of Northern Ireland than London. So I don't see how you can support it from a democratic point of view. I don't see how a unionist can support it, and I don't see how you can support it if you believe in the political and economic freedom of this country.
That was Boris Johnson. Sadly, he wasn't talking about his own deal, although he could have been.
Which is a lot worse for that issue, because there were no sort of tariff divergences between Northern Ireland and Great Britain. They were just regulatory divergences.
But it just goes to show how... a bit of a U-turn that Boris Johnson has done. I was castigated by my co-host last week, Nick Dubois, former Conservative MP, saying, you doubted Boris could open the withdrawal agreement, and he did. And I said, well, yeah, I did doubt it, because I was listening to what the EU was saying. They were saying it's not going to reopen. But I'm not going to give him too much credit for going back on a deal that was on offer to Theresa May 15 months ago, which she said no British Prime Minister would ever accept it. So... yeah, he did fool me by breaking one of the promises that he said he wouldn't break, and from listening to interviews that he gave, such as the clip that we just played. But gentlemen, let's not hark on with the past. Let's move on with the future. The big news today has been what's happening with the election. So we left it last week with Boris Johnson basically saying to Parliament, look, I'll give you a few more days to discuss the bill if you agree to a December 12th, I believe, is the election. He's gagging for an election, as you set out, Jonathan and Lee. I think we all agreed it's a win-win situation for Boris, for Johnson. Boris Johnson, don't want to call him Boris. That the more he's seen to be prevented from delivering this deal, the better it plays for him for
Not
elections.
necessarily, but I can talk about that in a second.
Yes, we will. But let's see where we're at the moment. The offer that Boris Johnson has put on the table for Labour and the opposition is you can have a few more days if you agree to a December 12th election. What we're hearing today, Joe Swinson on Andrew Marr, Chuka Umunna on Sophie Ridge, is the Liberal Democrats, along with the support of the SNPs, want to propose a one-line bill. I think they're proposing the date of the 6th of December for a general election. And, of course, a one-line bill...
The 9th.
The 9th. That's my dyslexia kicking in. That a one-line bill that will require a simple majority, because Boris Johnson, under the Fixed Term Parliament Act, needs 400...
We'll have to go through the Lords as well.
We'll have to go through the Lords, but under the Fixed Term Parliament Act, which Boris Johnson's going to table tomorrow to get his election, he needs 434 MPs, two-thirds. He's not going to get that. But the Liberal Democrats and the SNPs, we don't know what Labour are doing. They're going to need Labour. They are saying, and Chuka Umunna is saying, what this proposal does is it fixes a date for the general election, for the December the 9th. It stops no deal. They're fairly confident of that because the election is fixed, and I think they're relying upon the fact that the EU are granting that extension.
The law only comes into force if the EU has granted an extension till the 31st of January, which is why it's so clever.
Correct. And it stops Boris Johnson pushing through his withdrawal agreement implementation bill through Parliament.
But even if he tried to, they'd have to vote on a new programme motion and they would reject it. That's the important thing. What Boris Johnson was saying last week was the height of absurdity. He was saying, if you give me this thing I really want, i.e. to deliver Brexit, you can give me this other thing that I really want, which is to go to the people in an election, which would be akin to Mrs Thatcher's 1983 victory lap, because Johnson would have delivered Brexit, nothing would have happened yet economically adverse, and he'd have sailed through to a huge majority, most likely. So there was no incentive for anyone to back that.
What's interesting is, from what I saw from Joe Swinson this morning and Chuka Umunna, and I'm not seeing from Labour, is that the Liberal Democrats have been pushing for a second referendum. I think they said they've tabled it 17 times. It's been voted on. They're nowhere near the numbers. And I think what I'm impressed with, and this is just purely my personal view, is that they've said, look, this is what we really want. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to. We're not going to have the numbers to push through a confirmatory vote or a second referendum. Therefore, what do? We change policy. We change attack. We change the procedure by which we want to get to where we want to get to. And the Liberal Democrats are still quite clear. They want to stop Brexit. That's not changed.
But they also want to win a lot of seats. So
but they want to win a lot of seats in order to do it.
There will be a lot more seats than if the election happened after Brexit.
Again, correct. But they are changing tack and they're proposing something new. Lee, do you think this is a good idea from the Liberal Democrats?
I think it's profoundly cynical, as Jonathan's hinting at. I mean, their policy is not just to have a second referendum, it's to revoke Article 50.
Yes. Only if they get a majority in the general election.
In principle, they are happy to cancel Brexit altogether without going back to the people. Mm-hmm. So going back to the people is a fallback option for them already. They, indeed, as you say, they know they probably don't have the votes in Parliament to push that through. And so they're hoping just to clean up a few Tory and Labour seats in an election. It's truly cynical. From Liberal Democrats.
You're saying it's cynical, and you said earlier they want to cancel Brexit without going back to the people. They are saying they want a general election in which, if they win a majority, they will revoke Article 50. That is going back to the people, because they can only get there by asking the people.
Sure, but the underlying position is deeply cynical and profoundly anti-democratic.
How can it be undemocratic to ask people to vote?
Because democracy is not simply about voting. Democracy is about voting and then seeing the outcome of that vote implemented. The two things go hand in hand. Otherwise, the first vote is not actually an election, it's just an opinion poll. And the political elite can just say, well, we don't particularly want to implement that vote, so we'll create all the necessary conditions where you can vote again and change your minds. That's very dangerous for democracy. What Liberal Democrats have done over the last few years is cornered a particular part of the electorate, which is about no more than 25% of people who simply don't care. They're willing to do enormous damage to democracy by simply cancelling Brexit at all cost. It's never really gone above 25% of the electorate, but the Liberal Democrats have now cornered that vote and they want to cash in by getting more seats. And so they're willing to risk an election at this stage in order to do that. I think that is profoundly cynical.
And I think there are lots of things you can say to that. I mean, I think it would cause immense damage to democracy, for example, if you implement the so-called will of the people and it doesn't turn out to be anything like what the people promised. That is going to cause immense damage to trust in the long term as well. But I do agree on a couple of the points, actually, because on the one hand, I don't think the Lib Dems' idea of revocation is a sensible one. I think it's divisive. I've never been in favour of outright revocation unless it's followed by a confirmatory referendum to guarantee that the people agree with that revocation, and that revocation would only come if the alternative was a no deal. So that's always been my view. I've always thought that you have to, what came in through the door of a referendum has to go out through the same door. But
and be pushed out of that door if necessary.
Well, look, I mean, they're not going to sort of, manipulate the vote. I mean, if the people want to cancel it, that is that, the people...
They've been manipulating the vote for the last 3 years by creating a condition where people are so demoralised and fed up that they will change their minds.
I think that, you can argue on both sides about why the people might be demoralised. I think it might be having something to do with the fact that the government's botched this process so completely. But the point is that a political party is entitled to want to win more seats, and we do have a situation where Parliament is completely deadlocked. Nothing can get through. We have a majority of minus 45. Corbyn says he wants an election. Johnson says he wants an election. The SNP wants an early election, as we found out, Alexis, a couple of weeks ago, when we were talking about how the SNP, Alex Salmond is going on trial early next year. That's not going to be good for the SNP to have that associated with them during an election campaign. So they want to get this out of the way early. They know they're going to clean up a lot of seats in Scotland. The Lib Dem is obviously going to clean up a lot of seats anyway. So I think that everyone realises they have something to offer in this election and something potentially to gain. I think that obviously it's not Corbyn who doesn't want this election. It's a lot of the PLP, the Parliamentary Labour Party, who doesn't want this election. But I think that if we can get in principle that no deal is off the table, if the EU has guaranteed this extension, and you have a date hammered in, which is not on Boris Johnson's terms and is in term time as well, so students will be able to vote, I don't see why it's a problem.
Diane Abbott was sent out today on the Andrew Marr show to deliver the clear message for Labour. Stop giggling. And she did say that Labour, they're sticking to what they said before, is that they do want a general election, as long as they can guarantee that a no-deal Brexit doesn't happen accidentally. They haven't expressed their opinion on the Liberal Democrat proposals so far. They are saying their position is that they are waiting to see what the EU officially says. Let's not forget, officially the EU have not said anything about extension. The rumours that I have picked up on is it might be a two-tier extension. Flex extension with the 15th of November being one cut-off point. If we've had the withdrawal agreement bill go through Parliament miraculously by then that's the end of the extension. And if not, without the Prime Minister asking for anything, it goes up to the 31st of January. So it's the 31st of January extension, but it's not official yet. I'm interested to get your thoughts both on if Brexit has not been delivered, which I think we can all agree that it won't have been delivered by the end of next week. That's another promise of Boris Johnson's that will have failed. We've seen how Theresa May suffered in the polls after the 29th of March when we didn't leave and her ratings plummeted. If Brexit has not been delivered and we go to a general election, who suffers most?
I think there's conflicting polls on this. There are some polls showing that the Brexit party support will increase if it's not delivered by the 31st. That relies on some people looking at what's happened and saying, oh, it's as you've just formulated it, Boris didn't keep his promise, he's let us down, the only person you can trust is Nigel Farage, etc., etc. I think some polls may pick up on that kind of sentiment, but I think most people will realise, they can see it in front of their eyes, that, like him or loathe him, Boris Johnson strained every sinew to get a revised deal and to try and get that through Parliament. And the person to blame is not Boris Johnson. It's the people who are continually frustrating Brexit in Parliament. And obviously that's where the Tories will try to win back lost support from the Brexit party, and indeed maybe pick up some of the 4 million Labour voters that voted to leave, for example. So really,
do you actually think? Sorry, let me make this little parenthesis, because a lot of people have talked about this. Do you actually think in the Labour heartlands, where there are those Labour Leave voters, and indeed a fair amount of them, do you actually think that? And we are talking about Labour heartlands, people for generation after generation voting for Labour. Do you really think that they can put a cross in the Conservative Party box? Because I think that possibly if they're going to vote against Labour, they're more likely to vote for the Brexit Party than vote for a Conservative government.
So there's been the days when the Labour Party could say that they sort of owned the working class vote in this country are long gone. And they've been slowly hemorrhaging away support over the years. Some Labour voters have simply stopped voting. They've become demoralised and disengaged. Some of them came back into politics for the 2016 election. Others drifted away, not directly to the Conservatives, because I think there is an underlying tribalism in British politics that makes it hard for people to do what you've just said. I could never vote for a Tory, etc. But people have drifted away via UKIP. And then a lot of those UKIP votes in 2016 reallocated to the Conservative Party. So that
also to the Brexit Party.
Some to the Brexit Party too. So in a way, you can see how that kind of anti-establishment party that is speaking to communities that don't feel represented anymore by the Labour Party is a sort of gateway drug, if you like, to the Conservatives. And polling shows that now substantial majority of people in the lower socioeconomic categories are supporting the Conservative Party. And if you add on the Brexit Party as well, that's where the working classes today are. I mean, I think that's terribly sad for somebody on the left. But that is a result of the Labour Party progressively over many years leaving behind many working class communities like the one that I'm from.
I think it also varies on where you are. Like, if you come from a mining town, for example, you might be less inclined to give your votes to the Conservatives than if you come from a town which wasn't hit quite so dramatically by Thatcherism, for example.
But coming back to the point, Jonathan, the question of, with Brexit not delivered, going to the polls, does it play better for Boris Johnson, or does it actually play well for the Labour Party? With this, I mean, their stance is still quite convoluted. Some people can understand it quite clearly.
I've written about how the Labour Party has sort of, shot itself in the foot with its election policy on Brexit. So I kind of do slightly fret about that. But look, I think we have to accept that the Conservative Party is currently way ahead in the polls. Now, that will maybe change after the 31st of October, after Thursday. We don't know, because once people see that Johnson hasn't delivered this pledge, he might lose a lot of trust. Because remember, Johnson can't have it both ways. He can't be this strong man that can be trusted to get things done and also be seen to be completely at the mercy of Jeremy Corbyn, which is what he is at the moment, because he can't get Brexit through, he can't get his election without Jeremy Corbyn giving that to him. So actually, Johnson has shown that he's not in control of events, he's not in control of his own narrative or destiny, and that's really important because it kind of it damages his brand. It's all very well saying a people versus Parliament election, but if you show you're actually not that strong after all, and you've broken the one promise you made to people when you came into office, do or die, die and ditch, then that does impact.
But if you can blame other people for this,
yes, but
then I mean, a source in a YouGov poll which was done on the 24th and 25th of October, it says the question was, if Britain does not leave the EU on October the 31st, who do you think would be most responsible for this? Only 20% blame Boris Johnson, 52% blame MPs on all sides.
Yes, but he didn't say I will take us out of the EU on the 31st of October if Parliament lets me. He said, do or die, come what may, we are going out. Sort of threatening implicitly and explicitly to break the law in order to do so. He hasn't done that.
But people are watching, right? They can see that it's not his personal failure. They can see that he has tried to do everything he can, and Parliament has held him back.
It'll come to a judgment. I mean, even after the Benn Act was passed, he was saying, I don't care about the Benn Act, I'm still going to take us out on the 31st of October. Now that, for me, I can't really understand why he'd have persisted that policy. It would have been a lot easier for him to say at that point, OK, fine, let's accept it. Parliament has now trampled your will, etc. We're not going to leave on the 31st of October. But he kept on saying it. After a certain point, that sort of outlives its usefulness because he was racist or dishonest.
Isn't it about imaging? He's just trying to say to people, look, I really, really tried. I did absolutely everything. These awful people in Parliament, they're blocking me. That's the message that I think will ultimately get through. And if we look at the polls, yes, there are some polls showing that Brexit Party support would tick up if he is seen to have broken his promise. And the Brexit Party, I think, is now desperately trying to sow discord about this deal. And I think they're being very misleading in order to prop up their own electoral support.
Totally misleading. I had a bizarre interview with a Brexit Party MEP who is portraying the withdrawal agreement as a permanent deal. And they keep referring to this as, this is this permanent deal that would be stuck forever.
The withdrawal agreement is an international permanent treaty. The political declaration is not, and the future trade deal is not. But the actual terms of withdrawal are permanent, and that's reasonable to say. So the Northern Ireland,
but permanent only up until the 22nd
because there are two strands here. The withdrawal agreement is a binding treaty. So that is the bit that is set in stone. You can change the political. You can maybe
until we renegotiate our future trade deal.
It's separate. They're two separate agreements. The withdrawal agreement is about the withdrawal. The trade deal in future is about what happens in the future. So you can maybe, if you wanted to, if a future Labour government, for example, wants to have a customs union and a single market,
they can.
That could override the de facto override the withdrawal agreement, because then you'd have no tariff divergence between Northern Ireland and Great Britain. But it still doesn't. It doesn't nullify the withdrawal agreement. That is permanent.
But I think we're saying the same thing but cross wires. But I think there's been grossly misrepresented from the Brexit Party, because of course if Brexit is delivered, Brexit Party is gone.
But this is the fundamental point. They have to do this, partly for cynical reasons, partly because, in terms of the idea of Max Weber's theory of bureaucracy, that it never dissolves itself, it simply adapts. The Brexit Party is not going to sit itself out of existence. They're not going to disband themselves. They simply adapt and change the circumstances. Now, they know that there is a seam of opinion in this country, maybe 20-25%, who want no deal at any cost, who will see this deal, rightly or wrongly, as, to use that horrible word, a betrayal. And there's no reason. The Conservatives are no longer appealing to that vote. The Conservatives have nailed their flag to the deal mast. The Brexit Party needs to appeal to those votes for the sake of its own existence.
We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be straight back with some of your calls. I know some of you are dying to speak to us to let us know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000 is the number you need to get your call in. You can tweet us at Talk Radio. Remember, you can watch us live on our Twitter feed at Talk Radio. You can watch us on our Facebook page and the YouTube page. We've got plenty of your messages that I will read through after the break.
He's the righteous reporter who's got his finger on the pulse of UK politics.
They should be scrutinised more closely.
The Week with John Nicholson on Talk Radio. This afternoon from 4. Join the stout speaker with a triple lock manifesto to bring you the week's big stories from Westminster.
Journeying across the week's political landscape, debating all the pressing issues.
I'll be presiding over fast-paced political debate.
From budget cuts to Brexit, or ballots to backbenchers.
All from his heavily reinforced radio dispatch box.
Read my lips. It's a 3-line whip to listen to The Week with John Nicholson.
Toying the party line this afternoon from 4
on Talk Radio. Outspoken opinions and decisive debate. The Alexis Conran Show on Talk Radio.
Welcome back to the show with me, Alexis Conran, here on Talk Radio. With me, I have Jonathan Liss and Dr. Lee Jones. Here's some more of your comments on YouTube. Jim says, I would want a change of parliament, even if the subject wasn't Brexit, because the MPs just aren't good enough. Do you think it's fair, the bashing that MPs are getting? Because I do genuinely think, regardless of what you think of their politics, I do genuinely think that a lot of them are actually trying
very honourable. They're doing their best,
very
they're doing
hard.
What they think is right.
They're trying to do what they think. A lot of them are caught in the middle of having, for example, a Leave constituency, but the MP themselves thinking that actually I need to protect some of the jobs in my constituency. If you've got a Nissan factory, or if a Honda factory is gone in Swindon, I think they're getting a little bit of an unfair bashing because they're being put. Lee does not agree at all.
No, I don't.
Really?
No, I think they deserve the opprobrium that's been heaped on them. Essentially.
Well, they should just have accepted the deal. Any deal, just put it through.
Look, if you want to make the referendum binding, you could have. They didn't.
Well, we don't have a tradition of binding referenda in this country.
The alternative vote referendum was binding.
We don't have a tradition of it. Increasingly, in recent years, we have resorted to plebiscites to settle major questions. I think that's a sign of crisis in our representative institutions, actually. Normally, the way that British democracy works is you elect representatives and they make decisions on our behalf. The problem with our representative system, it's become very unrepresented. Many people don't feel represented in the system anymore.
Okay,
and this is why there's increasing resort to referenda to try to make these decisions. But it sits very poorly alongside a representative democracy system.
It does, and it's a conflict. But MPs, as far as I have been told, by MPs, are there to do what they think is best for their constituents.
That is a particular understanding of representative democracy, which is associated with Edmund Burke, for example, who gave a very famous speech to his electors in Bristol and said, I'm not just here to do what you tell me to do. What happened? He was kicked out very soon afterwards in the next
didn't
election.
go down well.
But that is democracy.
Okay.
Like Churchill in 1945.
Let's speak to Amanda. She's called from Bristol. Amanda, welcome to the show. Nice to have your thoughts here. What would you like to say?
Yeah, a couple of things, please. I'm calling from Bristol, Burkeland.
Burkeland.
Yeah, I have campaigned. I really want to address. Huge fan of John List, by the way. I follow him on Twitter. I think he's great.
Much.
It's a pleasure. And the other thing is I just want to address Dr. Jones about his desire for Brexit. You want a more socialist government, but I'm saying to you, I've campaigned in very poor areas in Swindon, where I was literally, almost kicked off their front porch for mentioning Jeremy Corbyn's name. I know they have this argument that in 2017, look how he changed things, la 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 la. But since then, they've had 2 more years of mainstream press telling us what an anti-Semite he is. Honestly, people vote for Jeremy Corbyn, not in my experience, and certainly not. And I'm not talking about middle class people. So that's point number one. And the other thing I wanted to say, with Brexit, you get your Brexit. So who are we doing deals with? America? Obviously, Johnson wants to take away alignment from regulatory alignment from the EU. But these people are a civilized bunch, aren't they? I mean, I don't want to trade with chlorinated chicken and all of that crap. And that's the danger here, isn't it? We are this tiny sort of nation. Scotland says goodbye, and so does Northern Ireland, which I know is a good thing in my opinion.
Okay, Amanda. Let me give Lee a chance to come back. Lee, your thoughts?
So it's true that Jeremy Corbyn is very unpopular with a lot of working class voters. I think that's true.
Yeah.
I think he could have made himself a lot more popular by sticking to his principles. He's a lifelong Eurosceptic, for example.
The stakes could not be higher. They just could not. My kids' futures, they want to be able to live and work in other European countries. This is a disaster for us. And he's going to go into this election and get an absolute drubbing.
We're going
to get 5 years more of bloody Johnson.
Well,
we might not, though.
This is an incredibly defeatist argument, right? It is. If the Labour Party probably...
Amanda, let you've had your say. I think we need to hear from Lee for a second.
The Labour Party operates on a very defeatist basis when it says, if we pass this bill, we get 10 years of deregulation, 10 years of Boris Johnson. In other words, they think they're going to lose 2, maybe 3 general elections. It is if the Labour Party is to win, it has to go out and persuade people. That's the only way it's going to win power in this country and push forward a radical agenda.
But do you accept that, as Amanda was saying, on the doorstep, Jeremy Corbyn's not the most popular? I think his ratings are the lowest of any political leader since the records began. I think minus 60. I don't know how you get into minus figures, but do you also accept that this general election, I've heard it a lot from Labour supporters who say, look, it's not all about Brexit. The people who are struggling to put food on the table, the people who are worried about their jobs, the people who are not part of the London metropolitan elite and all those things are worried about actual bus services, NHS services, their jobs, their schools. And actually, it's not about Brexit. But the truth is that even we've seen in the local council elections recently, which sort of went under the radar, Labour performed terribly. Absolutely terribly. We saw a surge in the Lib Dem vote in council elections, and we saw possibly the most incompetent government hold on to seats on local council elections, which is it's kind of unusual right now. And that's about 16 points ahead in the polls. And does that not tell you, Lee, that actually this general election, Brexit is what people are going to be voting for? They're not going to be voting this time round for the bus services, which they do care about. But Brexit has superseded all of these things.
Of course. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not here to bash a drum for the Conservative Party, but nor am I here to bash a tambourine for the Labour Party. I think the Labour Party has been disastrous. I think it's handled Brexit appallingly from day one. And obviously the Labour Party's strategy is to basically try to have another 2017 election where you talk about everything apart from Brexit. You know, forget about Brexit, we'll give you improved bus services. I don't think that strategy will succeed. It worked in 2017 because both parties appear to have accepted Brexit, passing the Withdrawal Act, and that meant that the conversation could be shifted onto other ground. Right now, we're in the middle of a very deep national crisis. People want to know, what is your position on Brexit? And most people look at the Labour Party and think, you've sold us out, you haven't had a clear position. Remainers don't like them because they've not been too pro-Remain. Leavers don't like them because they've not been pro-Leave. They've really been caught between two stools, which reflects the way they've been torn apart between two different electoral constituencies.
Amanda, thank you for your call. Let's take one other one as well, because we've got a little bit of time. Brent from Southampton. Brent, welcome to the show. What would you like to say?
Yeah, hello. Unlike the previous caller, I'm actually a sort of left-wing supporter of the Labour Party, and I'm a strong sort of advocate of leaving the European Union. I feel on the one hand, Jeremy Corbyn is, if you like, being hijacked by a very sort of right-wing, pro-EU cabal of politicians, which is actually going to achieve the Labour Party absolutely nothing. It could result in the sort of Conservative victory at the next election that Theresa May was hoping for.
Brent, who do you mean? Who do you mean? I'm worried when people use the word cabal all the time because it's a one word that fits all. Who do you mean? People like Emily Thornberry, John McDonnell, Keir Starmer? Who are these people?
Well, if I could finish, I would certainly include Tom Watson. I would include most of those people. That group of people is actually highly pro-EU. Is actually wishes to overturn the result of the 2016 referendum. It might work well in London, but it won't work well in parts of the north of England or maybe not even Southampton, where I'm from. The term cabal is a widely used term in politics, by the way.
Yeah,
it's a widely used term.
It's also a widely used term of conspiracy theorists. But let me. No, I didn't say that you were. I was just talking about the term. But Brent, thank you for your call. Jonathan, is Jeremy Corbyn been hijacked against his will? Lee, you mentioned earlier that he should have stuck to his principles of being a Eurosceptic. Jonathan, do you feel that he's been led somewhere against his will?
I think the truth about Jeremy Corbyn is that he doesn't actually care that much about the EU either way. He doesn't want to talk about it. He didn't want to talk about it before the referendum. He hasn't wanted to talk about it particularly since the referendum. I think that he would be perfectly happy to stay in the EU if it meant delivering a Labour government, and if he thought that he could have a Labour government on soft Brexit terms, then he would accept that as well. So I think that's a kind of, in a way, there's an honesty about it. He just doesn't mind that much. But the point is that he's also a Democrat, and he has to be. He can't sort of say that he's going to follow the Labour Party membership on every single issue other than this one. And the Labour Party membership is very clearly pro-Remain. And so I think that the Labour Party just has to go into this election saying, we have an offer. Brexit hasn't been delivered yet. We have an offer which is we're going to negotiate our own terms and then have a referendum so that people can decide if they want it.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break for the news and we'll be straight back after that. But we are still being live streamed on Twitter, Facebook and YouTube. You can still get in touch with the show. 0344 499 1000 is the number you need. Or you could tweet us right here at Talk Radio.
On DAB, digital radio, online and on mobile.
This is Talk Radio.
The Alexis Conran Show on Talk Radio. With the Times and the Sunday Times. Know your times.
Postcode lottery costs £10 a month and £30,000 will be won every day by players in the December draws. Join in with your postcode at postcodelottery.co.uk before midnight on the 21st of November to play in the December draws. PPL manage lotteries on behalf of good causes. 16 plus, conditions apply. Play responsibly.
Someone's knocking at the door. Somebody's ringing the bell.
At DFS, Autumn-Winter Collection sofas are up to half price and many are guaranteed to be delivered before Christmas. Better be quick though, selected sofas end Monday. DFS.
Trick or treat!
Oh, sorry, this is a Vauxhall Network Q retailer.
But your sign says, no tricks, just treats.
Well, yeah, Treats like a £1,000 deposit contribution on an approved used SUV at 9.9% APR representative.
I'm telling my mum.
Well, get her to hurry. Offer ends on November the 4th. And don't forget our 1-year warranty and roadside assist. No tricks, just treats. Search Network Q. Because buying a used car shouldn't be scary. Personal contract purchase, subject to status, T's and C's apply. 18 plus only, Vauxhall Finance.
Picture a boy. He's in his teens. In a classroom. Distracted. What do you see? A lack of concentration? Or do you see what we see? A young man wondering how he can change the world. There are troops on peacekeeping missions that need that right now. Your army needs you. Find where you belong. Sedge Army Jobs.
Today, it's Newcastle v Wolves and Liverpool v Tottenham in a huge afternoon of football. And with Now TV, you can watch both games live for a one-off payment of just $9.99. Hold on, they're checking with VAR.
That's confirmed. It's $9.99.
Unbelievable stuff. So, to only pay for the games that matter to you, grab a Now TV Sky Sports Day Pass. Search Now TV Sports. 18 plus, content streamed via internet, full terms apply.
Collect 9 Sun Savers codes and get 2 tickets to Madame Tussauds London worth an incredible £70. Get your guns out with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Unleash your power with the Captain Marvel experience. And pose with music royalty Queen Bee herself. That's going right on the gram. Only in the Sun. Start collecting today. T's and C's apply.
Across the UK, online and on DAB Digital Radio. The Alexis Conran Show on Talk Radio.
At first, we were worried about using purple bricks, but since we sold with them, I haven't been able to stop going on about them, have I, dear?
No, love.
I've been telling everyone. Family, friends, that confused guy at the supermarket.
Yeah, you haven't really shut up about that.
But seriously, did I tell you about our purple bricks estate agent, Michael?
I met him too. He was nice.
We could talk to him whenever. Anything we asked, he could do it.
That's enough now,
He
dear.
was brilliant, always available to chat on the phone.
Enough,
I
Robert.
could email him any time of the day or night.
Purple bricks. You'll be totally sold.
Fixed fee payable on instruction or after 10 months. Viewing services cost extra. See website for more details.
Talk Radio.
Contact Talk Radio. Call 0344 499 1000. Text TALK and your message to 87222. Texts cost 25 pence plus your standard network rate. Or you can tweet us at Talk Radio.
This is Talk Radio.
The Alexis Conran Show on Talk Radio. With the Times and the Sunday Times. Know your times.
Sky Store, you're in for a web-slinging adventure.
What is going on?
A snap to our hole in our dimension. I need a new team. I need an Avenger.
I've got this.
You can now catch Spider-Man Far From Home straight from the cinema.
Awesome!
And watch Spider-Man save the world from the comfort of your sofa.
Mr. Stark trusted me. I am not going to let him down.
Let's go save the world, Spider-Man.
You got gifts, Parker. The world needs that.
So much for friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Woo! Spider-Man Far From Home, available now in Sky Store.
On a child's bedroom window, a little wall crawler spots a skyscraper on the far side of town. Determined to reach it, the little wall crawler slowly and surely begins to climb down. Out of the window, along rooftops and branches, the wall crawler hurries, sure-footed and swift, till finally reaching the distant skyscraper. In one single bound, it jumps into the lift. It rides to the rooftop and stares at the view, where now in the sunshine the whole city gleams. Then over the edge goes the little wall crawler, to crawl down the wall of the wall crawler's dreams. Determination can get you where you want to be. At Royal London, we're customer owned, so our only focus is getting you there. Pensions, investments, life insurance. Royal London, determination since 1861.
Royal London.
It's hard to find a children's gift which doesn't have a short shelf life. They'll eat all the chocolates in 5 minutes, finish their video games by the end of the week, and grow out of their trainers before you know it. So instead of buying them something just for Christmas, buy them something that's for life. Premium bonds from NS&I. Every month they'll have the chance to win cash prizes. And now you can buy premium bonds for any child. Start their savings journey from just £25. Search Gift Premium Bonds to find out more.
Brighten up your home with 2 for £65 on Farrow & Ball Modern and Estate Emulsion. Homebase feels good to be home. Terms at homebase.co.uk.
My name is Sarah Connor.
Critics agree Terminator Dark Fate has truly blistering action.
Do you believe in fate, Sarah?
Listen, everybody dies. If you don't make it.
It's thrilling. 4 stars, says Empire Magazine.
A machine from the future. Once you're dead. Never seen one like you before. Almost human.
Don't miss legendary producer James Cameron's Terminator Dark Fate.
Sarah, I'm going to help you change the future.
I'll be back.
In cinemas and IMAX now. Rated 15.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
Talk Radio, on the hour news headlines.
Good morning, I'm David Dom. Labour's Shadow Health Secretary John Ashworth described a joint plan by the Lib Dems and SNP for a general election before Christmas an opportunistic stunt. The parties have offered to support a vote on December the 9th if the EU grants a 3-month Brexit extension and removes no deal.
We're in this situation discussing whether or not we should have an election because Boris Johnson has utterly failed on his signature policy to deliver Brexit do or die on October 31st.
Meanwhile, Tony Blair has exclusively told Talk Radio it's a fantasy to think the Brexit problem will be resolved if we have a general election in December.
If you actually just had a little more time on this, people would see that a general election won't necessarily resolve it. You might get a hung parliament, by the way, so you can't guarantee you resolve this.
You can hear the full interview on the Tony Blair exclusive with Gavin Esler from midday. It's understood Vietnamese police have taken DNA samples from the potential relatives of people who died in a lorry container found in Essex. Officials are trying to identify the 39 victims. A man's been charged with manslaughter. The US military is widely reported to have conducted an operation in Syria against Islamic State leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, but apparently officials have not been able to confirm whether he was killed. Donald Trump is making a statement later. And Kurt Cobain's famous olive green cardigan has been sold at auction in New York for £260,000. The Nirvana singer's custom-made guitar also went for $265,000.
Talk Radio National Weather.
Showers in the north with the heaviest rain across Scotland, drier and cooler further south.
Talk Radio Sports Update.
England will play South Africa in the Rugby World Cup final. The Springboks beat Wales 19-16 in the last 4 in Yokohama. It's a repeat of the 2007 showpiece. Liverpool could reopen their 6-point lead over Manchester City in the Premier League this afternoon. They take on Tottenham in their first meeting since the Champions League final. Meanwhile, Norwich could go level on points with Manchester United if they beat Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's side later. And Johnny Bairstow scored 78 from 45 balls as England started their cricket tour of New Zealand with a win. England beat a New Zealand 11 by 6 wickets with 11 balls to spare, chasing down 173. That's the latest.
Talk Radio. Across the UK, online and on DAB Digital Radio.
Talk Politics on Talk Radio.
Welcome back to Talk Politics with me, Alexis Conran, here on Talk Radio with the Times. Be well informed. I'm here in the studio with Jonathan Liss and Dr. Lee Jones. Plenty of your messages coming in and your calls, which we will take before the end of the show. Unfortunately, we finished today at 12. After 12, you have Gavin Esler here with his exclusive interview with Tony Blair. Remember, you can watch us. We are live streamed at Talk Radio on Facebook and YouTube. You've been getting some messages.
Yeah, shout out to Terry Tibbs, who tells me that Ace Ventura called he wants his shirt back. So I will be walking out of this studio
it is a colourful shirt. A couple of your comments here. Malcolm on YouTube says a general election will help clean out MPs like Grieve, Chuka, Asubri, etc. Once that's done, fortunately, many of us believe that things change for the better after an election. I would say careful what you wish for. There's some big hitters out there, Malcolm, with some very, very slim majorities. None other than Boris Johnson has got quite a small majority now in Uxbridge.
I thought they were talking about maybe shunting him off to the north somewhere.
I think, do you know, I asked, maybe we'll ask our next guest, actually, but I did ask, apparently it's not the done thing to change seats.
Gosh, well, I think that really comes across some months ago.
It's also not the done thing to mislead the Queen on prorogation of Parliament, but you'll do it anyway. Now, let's welcome to the show a Conservative MP for Harrow East, Bob Blackman. Welcome to the show.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Pleasure to have you on. Let me just start. I asked the listeners this question, so I'll ask you as well, being a Conservative Party member and also a Conservative member. Boris Johnson ran on a ticket of saying that he wouldn't put a border down the Irish Sea. I could play the clip for you again, but I'm pretty sure you remember his words when he also said that Theresa May's deal was inefficient when it came to Northern Ireland because there would be border down the Irish Sea. He promised he would leave on October the 31st, come what may, do or die. He said he'd rather die in a ditch than sent the letter. And he also said he didn't want the election. He's broken all four of those promises. Are you still supporting him, and why?
Absolutely supporting him. Boris is trying desperately against the Remainer Parliament that we have to get Brexit delivered. I mean, the fact is that about 2 weeks ago, everyone was saying, well, there's no chance of getting a deal, it's never going to happen, and then he came back with a deal.
Well, he came back with an offer that was put to Theresa May 15 months ago, which she rejected, saying no British Prime Minister would vote for an offer like that because it destroys the union.
If you go through the whole deal, and the whole things have changed, I mean, the most important thing is to get rid of the backstop, because that would prevent us from leaving the European Union unless the European Union acquiesced and gave us permission to leave. That was the biggest problem about Theresa May's arrangements. Now we've got a position whereby effectively Northern Ireland will be in the UK customs union, and we get the advantage of the free trade agreements that we want to negotiate with the European Union, and also the free trade agreements that we want to negotiate with the world. And so the key point there is obviously actually Northern Ireland could well be in a very good place indeed as a result of this particular deal, because most of the trade involving Northern Ireland and the Republic is, of course, in agriculture. So from that perspective, yes, it makes sense. But,
well, if they're getting a very good deal, why can't the rest of us get that good deal?
Well, we are getting a very good deal. I mean, the whole
we're not staying in the single market or the customs union.
No, well, the economic benefit of leaving the European Union is to be out of the single market and out of the customs union, because that allows us to negotiate free trade deals around the world. Now, what happens immediately we leave, and I think there was a well of optimism on the deal being signed, is the day after we start negotiating the trade agreement that, in fact, Michel Barnier said openly on the 31st of October, and we start talking about the free trade agreement on the 1st of November. The problem that the European Union have now is going, well, scratching their heads, hang on, where's this all going?
Okay.
Now, my point of view, I'll just say my point of view.
Sure.
My point of view is that instead of trying to force a general election right now, I know Boris wants to do this because of trying to break the deadlock, it would be far more sensible to, having got a majority of 30 for the deal in Parliament, which would be beyond anyone's expectations, you bank that and say, right, okay, let's get an agreement on how long you want to scrutinise this deal in Parliament, get it done, get it delivered before Christmas. Hopefully we would get to a position by, say, a week of discussion and debate, get it through the House of Lords, and then get it delivered, and we leave the European Union before Christmas and start the new year out of the European Union, and then we can start talking about when an election should be held.
So in your view, Boris Johnson's making a mistake by asking for a general election?
No, I understand completely why they want to do this, because basically we've got a position where the opposition, particularly the Labour Party, are just putting every obstacle in their way of holding a general election. First it was take no deal off the table, and then we'll have an election. Now we've gone through various different hoops, and it's now Jeremy Corbyn saying Boris Johnson's got to come to the House and say they'll never leave the European Union without a deal. Well,
Okay, before I hand over to my guests, who I know have questions for you as well, if this was such a good deal for the UK, and in particular Northern Ireland, why did Boris Johnson try to railroad it through Parliament by giving them a minimum amount of days with something that is so huge? If it's such a good deal, surely a parliamentarian such as Boris Johnson and such as yourself would like this deal to be scrutinised and passed through this sovereign parliament, which, I mean, that's what the referendum was all about. Why try and railroad it through?
Well, two things apply. One is, obviously, the deal will be in the form of a treaty, and you can't make changes to that. If you start making changes to it, you're into a renegotiation. The second thing is that, obviously, everyone's committed to achieving the deadline of 31st of October. Now, to get the deal through at Parliament meant getting it through by Thursday evening last week. Then the House of Lords would have been sitting this weekend to scrutinise it. For us to look on Monday, tomorrow, at any amendments that the House of Lords have made, and then get it through so the European Parliament could vote on it.
Sure, but, Mr. Blackman, you know very well that if Boris Johnson wanted to, he could have asked for a very, very short extension, which he would have got. Parliament would have been happy because they would have felt that they had got enough time to scrutinise the withdrawal agreement implementation bill, and everybody would have been happy. I put it to you that Boris Johnson has shot himself in the foot because he did all his do or die, leave, come what may, die in a ditch, and all that nonsense of October the 31st. Even people like Jeremy Hunt at the time, Michael Gove at the leadership race, were all saying, look, if we need a couple of weeks just to give Parliament enough time to scrutinise the bill in order to put it through Parliament, then of course I would be happy to allow for that extension. But no, Boris Johnson laid down his marker in order to win the Conservative vote and shot himself in the foot.
No, I don't think that's the case. I think the reality was that the deadline that had been set of the European Union was 31st of October. That's what they gave us in terms of an extension, and that's what he's working towards achieving. If you're in a position whereby you decide to go back for a further extension, you're at the mercy of the European Union. And we're seeing now the machinations going on across the European Union. Well, yes, you can have an extension, but we won't tell you how long until you sort out whether you're having a general election. I mean, our problem slightly is this. If we keep going back and back and back, they're getting up with the whole situation. They want a decision, and I don't blame them. They want to get on with their arrangements as much as we want to get on with ours. They're fed up talking about Brexit.
Okay. Let's get a question from Jonathan Liss.
Hi, Bob. Hi. I suppose two questions, really. The first one is, you say that you want to deliver Brexit first before an election. Now, I understand that from the Tories' perspective, but isn't it the case that you're worried people won't support it, and that's why you want to have it all done and dusted before you give people a say? And the second point, just leading on from what Alexis was saying, is really that it comes down to this, surely. Why is an arbitrary deadline of the 31st of October, which was dictated by Emmanuel Macron, more important than safeguarding jobs and prosperity?
Well, the reality is that everyone predicted that, in terms of jobs and prosperity, that if the temerity to vote to leave the European Union, unemployment would be rife and the economy would crash. Well, patently that's not true. And I think the key point here is that the economy has outperformed every economist's expectations in the wake of the vote to leave. And the reality is that market confidence has been boosted by the fact that we finally got a deal which the British government and the European Union could sign off. So from that perspective, I think that's key.
But I think you have to acknowledge, sorry, Bob Blackman, you have to acknowledge that we have had outward investment drop. We were nearing a recession. I mean, you're trying to paint a very rosy picture of the last 3 years economically. It's not quite the case, but it's fair to say that the pound, for example, did receive a bump upwards when the bill received some support in Parliament.
Well, when the bill got an unexpectedly high margin of success of a majority of 30, yeah, of course it did. I mean, the reality, yes, one of the problems is the uncertainty over what's happening is causing the economic difficulty. There's no doubt about that. People, I mean, I talk to business people all the time and they say the same thing. Look, just make a decision. Almost don't mind what the decision is. Just get on and do it so that we can then plan for how we're going to develop our companies, our exports, imports, etc.
Why can't you let the people make that decision, though?
Sorry?
Why can't you let the people make that decision in a general election before Brexit has actually been done, so we can find out what they think about it?
Well, I mean, the reality is that obviously that's what Boris is saying at the moment. So fine, okay, we're a good deal. We believe it's it's an excellent deal. We wanted it to get through Parliament. If we can't get it through Parliament, then let's have a general election on the subject and see where we are. And the opinion polls show us racing ahead at the moment as a result.
Well, he wants to get his Brexit deal delivered first on the 6th of November. That's his offer. He hasn't said he'd have an election. So, look, I agree that obviously the Tories are ahead in the polls, but there is a risk that if Brexit hasn't been done and you have an election, you have a lot of other parties who want to change Brexit.
There's always a risk. I mean, you've got the Liberal Democrats who want to cancel Brexit, the SNP who frustrate Brexit, the Labour Party can't make up their mind whether they Brexit or not. With a policy that no one can understand.
Bob Blackman,
I mean, we're the only party with a comprehensive policy to say, let's deliver on the referendum and get a deal.
Okay, let me ask you this. Overnight, we've been hearing that the Liberal Democrats, along with the SNPs, are prepared to put down a vote tomorrow in order to get an election on December the 9th. And they are, it looks like they're coming forward to give Prime Minister Boris Johnson what he's asking for, which is that election. Now, James Cleverly has dismissed this as a gimmick this morning from the Liberal Democrats and the Scottish Party to trigger this December 9th election. Do you see how the public can get confused when now Boris Johnson has been asking for an election? It's part of the opposition are saying, OK, you can have it on December the 9th. And then the Conservative Party chairman turns around and says, oh, no, it's a gimmick. We're not falling for that. Do you see how ridiculous this sounds?
Well, the thing is that what the SNP and the Liberal Democrats are putting forward is, I believe, an amendment to the Fixed-Term Parliament.
Correct, yeah.
Whatever people's view on the Fixed-Term Parliament Act, the reality is that as soon as you get, I'm not sure how they would actually propose this, frankly, but that's another matter. They would certainly have to use the Speaker's discretion on whether it would be permissible to put such a proposal to Parliament. And by the way, all sorts of other things to it. And the big issue is, does it become a Christmas tree bill that then votes in lots of other things on...
Well, the Liberal Democrats have said this morning, Joe Swinson categorically said that they would not be seeking to add things like a people's vote or anything onto that. Of course, she can only speak for the Liberal Democrats. Yes, correct.
Exactly.
She can't speak for Labour.
Exactly. And so, therefore, there's a potential trap there. What Boris has said, I mean, we're clear on this, is that we can, up till November the 6th, we can debate and discuss the deal. And the idea is to get that done as an act of Parliament before we go to the polls on the 12th of December. That's to the opposition parties. They're now saying, oh, no, I want that. Oh, God, no, stop. And that is plenty of time to scrutinise the bill if the opposition parties want to play ball. What's clear is the opposition parties are just out to frustrate the process of leaving the European Union, delay, prevaricate and prevent. I mean, that's been their strategy, really, since the referendum was held.
Well, one could argue that the same accusations could have been put to certain parts of the Conservative Party before March 29th. I mean, had it not been for the ERG voting consistently against Theresa May's deal, we would have been out by the 29th of March. But Bob Blackman, thank you very much for your time. I'm afraid we've reached need to go to a break. But Bob Blackman, Conservative MP for Harrow East, thank you for giving us your time this Sunday morning. We will be straight back after this break, but remember, you can give us your thoughts on what you've been hearing so far. 0344 499 1000 is the number you need, or you could tweet us at Talk Radio.
We are Talk Radio. The Alexis Conran Show on Talk Radio with The Times and The Sunday Times. Know your times.
We've been together 3 years. We both love travel, and luckily we've got the same taste in music. Next year, we're planning a big road trip, and my wife's coming too. It'll be nice. The three of us don't do enough together. We know how much your Mini means to you. That's why Mini Service offers an array of convenient options and allows you to book online anytime at mini.co.uk. Because we love your Mini almost as much as you do. Search Mini Service. Who's in? T's and C's apply, subject to availability, participating retailers only.
Today, it's Newcastle v Wolves and Liverpool v Tottenham in a huge afternoon of football. And with Now TV, you can watch both games live for a one-off payment of just $9.99. Hold on, they're checking with VAR.
That's confirmed, it's $9.99.
Unbelievable stuff. So, to only pay for the games that matter